In the show that we saw, you may have noticed it tends to be done this way. I've seen it done this way several times. When the line goes on, Helena is in precisely this posture. Precisely. And his feet holding on like that. Only when she gets to the part where she says, use me as you use your spaniel, she turned and presented it to him. You don't need to do that. But she says to him, use me as you use your spaniel. The scene is a difficult scene, no matter what you do with it. But one of the pieces you have to solve, and cannot make nice with, is the spaniel line. Whether it's in Mark's words or Shakespeare's words, there is part of that, one slice, that means precisely what the posture means. This is an exceedingly difficult scene to play for me. I understand a bunch of things about it. You all understand easily as much as I understand it more. But it's very, very hard. Very hard for the Jesus character to say the lines. Very hard for the audience to watch what this means physically. That's part of why we ended up opting for, when we played the scene, the woman approaches and Jesus' character says to her, she came to him, she fell at his feet. And the woman lifts her chin and says, in your dreams, chump. Not in so many words, but physically. And then he speaks the lines eye to eye, because I guess as the father of a daughter, that particular posture, set of postures is something that means something that I haven't been able to play that way. Should I be able to? I don't care. It's a piece with this scene that has to be painful enough that people have to think about this.
Richard, this is a question in relation to this kind of play. If these two are arch enemies and are representatives of people who are effectively at war with them, even if there's a truce at the moment, how does that affect this interaction? I can't imagine that in that context that she would have the nerve to touch me.
That makes
It
sense.
would be a declaration of war.
Something. Declaration of something. And that's one of the pieces that you have to negotiate to play the scene. For her to touch, all of the different backgrounds come to bear on the moment of touch. Because if this is primarily a scene, and finally it is, about enemies, that moment of touch is loaded with everything that goes with enemy touching enemy. But it is always still also a scene about a woman and a man. It is always still also a scene about our Jesus and an outsider. It's always still, always, all of those things. And each one of them requires a different negotiation in the touch. We played this some years ago now for regional SBL and played it with the woman looking him in the eye, played her simply as a mother, as a woman who simply should not be spoken to so. That was one slice. And therefore played it with her slapping the Jesus character when he called her a dog. In the audience was Amy Jo Levine. By invitation, it was great fun. And she watched it and she enjoyed it and she said, but you know, of course, they're enemies. You know, of course, that in the power differential, she has relatively more power than he. What's that mean for the scene? Have you ever played it that way? Well, we had. We had chosen to play this slice rather than that slice. She said, could you play it that way? So I sent the same two actors that played the gendered piece up, because they are our strongest, and asked them to reverse the roles. And they played it, and it was one of the hardest things to look at ever, because the woman stood and looked at him, and when she knelt, it was clear that she was kneeling regally, expecting that this would have the effect on him that it ought to have. She said the words. He spoke to her and called her a dog. She rose, looked him in the eye, and said her response line, and the Jesus character slapped her. Ay, ay, ay. I mean, the hair stood up in the back of everyone's neck till it fell off. What I know is that the thing is fraught with such tension that I haven't been able to resolve it so that it sits level when it's done. This is what I know. I think it's because of the arguments. I think that's why. But wow.
There are also two people. There are also two people caught in this political relationship. I'm thinking wrong. Another Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet. Right? Yes. You know, two families are enemies, and yet these two are in love with each other. How do you reconcile that?
Yes.
So at some level, there's her need to have her desperate situation dealt with her daughter, and his need to be left the hell alone and hide, and those two things in conflict. But you also have two needy human beings who happen to be male and female, and you have this whole cultural, political thing going on. So there are lots of different levels of
all at the same
interaction.
time.
All at the same time.
There are other scenes that are so much easier in this one.
Well, and this is what led me to the Midrash poem on this I read last year.
Yes.
Because I couldn't quite work it out to a happy ending by the time there was all this tension in it. It just wasn't believable that Cassie had even out her daughter now made it all okay. Not after she'd done the Helena thing, and not after there was all this ethnic conflict that had never been resolved, but simply accepted by both sides.
And he doesn't go to her house. He doesn't go.
He tells her she can go.
Right. Maybe it's just a way of kind of a provisional way out. It's a kind of a very unsatisfying ending, actually.
Yes, it is.
And the way the story ends, Jesus just dissolves.
Yes.
Well, what would happen if you kept Jesus on the stage and he goes back and just finally, he finally gets his rest? I mean, he's finally cool again. Now that, well, if that's happening over there, he said, well, now I can hang back.
This is mature.
Yeah, it's got to mature.
Yeah.
That's just the narrative then goes to the child lying on the bed.
Yeah.
Thrown on the bed.
Or
I will insist.
I thought
when Pam, in one of those scenes, looked back at him with gratitude, I said, oh, wow. You know, because the woman, I mean, there's no response. It's like it ends there. And then they continue the interaction because...
Now she could say, no, you go and rest.
Yes. Yes.
And hide, or you go and hide.
Because she has come and she has got what she needed.
Except she only has his word demons left. I mean,
And that means that she somehow, she either has received something that tells her she can trust this, or she has given up and she discovers to her amazement that the daughter is healed. Shimon Levy says that, I think it's in the Bible as Holy Script, I think that's where it talks about the ways the text leaves gaps that an actor has to fill. And Levy believes that those are the gaps, but the rabbis believe the same thing. The gaps are where the Midrash happens. And in every gap, you've got to try every explanation that anyone can ever think of. And when you ask the rabbis which is true, they say yes. So every possibility. Does the woman leave saying, I think he actually did? Does the woman leave saying, this is going nowhere? Does the woman leave saying, I can't believe I came here today. I can't believe I came here today.
A feeling I had, I don't know if it was coming out, but it was like, I couldn't believe he actually responded in that positive way. I mean, I wasn't feeling very hopeful. Even as I said, yes, the Bulldogs received the crumbs. When he actually responded in a positive way, it felt like too good to be true. Hopeful, but I can't hope this. But yet, I supposedly got what I came for.
There's
At least enough that you left. Because something motivates your leaving.
But there's a building in that. It begins with her word when she responds. It seems to me that this is where the first breakthrough happens. And that, as you say, the next thing is she builds on this when he says go. And then it continues to build until then she sees. So I think there's something sort of building like a wave. But I think it begins with her, not with Jesus.
ways the empty spaces in the story have been filled. I'm trying to remember who the interpreter was that did it first, but I don't remember. One of the interpreters that I played around with notices that there are women following Jesus from the beginning and assumes that they should therefore be presumed to be in every scene. And that the reason, therefore, that women know to approach Jesus is because he is surrounded by women that make it clear that they ought, that they could, that there might be some benefit to it. Now, that's fraught with all sorts of troubles. But if you play the scene with the Jesus character surrounded by a crowd of women who mediate the entry and the exit, you end up with a whole other raft of possible explanations. You do not get, at least it doesn't work physically to my eye, if the women say, it's okay, he says that to everyone. It doesn't work if the women are not shocked. Because anything else would be, I can't imagine anyone saying that in your presence, and, well, I imagine lights would be punched out. But I cannot imagine you smiling blandly and saying, well, he says that to everyone. No woman I know would say that. But if you play the women as a mediating presence, one of the reasons she could leave is because the women have had enough of him talking to her like that. And they hustle her out and say, we'll be okay, but he had no right to say it. It's another midrash, filling a gap that allows you to explore what's there.
A woman could just roll her eyes. He just did it again.
Yeah. And once you roll eyes in this scene, you got to roll eyes in another scene, and you got to roll eyes in another scene. And any act that is so powerfully disdainful is going to demand that it becomes a theme of some sort.
I wonder how, thinking about the whole gospel and the way these stories are told, would affect the way, because this comes in a succession of events, as David points out. You've already seen Jairus fall at Jesus' feet.
Yep.
You've seen the woman with the flow of blood do that. How that shapes then the way we see this woman doing it.
Yes.
Both how actors would choose to embody that, but also if they chose to embody it all in similar ways, how that would affect the way you look at this one.
Because there are waves rolling in, and the waves determine how you're able to do each new one. Yep.
And it would take some of the edge off the gender.
Not necessarily. One of the pieces when we were playing the chain of scenes, one of the pieces that we found was the oddity with the woman with the hemorrhage is healed and is standing there still when she discovers that because Jesus has been dithering to find her, the little girl has died. This again would have an effect on her, and that's a gender effect too, probably.
I'm just thinking about the falling down, people who fall down, and of course, there's only Jesus falls down.
Yes, yes.
That wave to echo.
Oh, and that would be a piece to play with, because, and I've never explored who falls and why. That would be fun to look at. Oh, yes.
The lepers first.
Yes.
I mean, and the falling is mirrored by resurrection often because they're told to rise and lots of those feelings. And sometimes, at least as a storyteller, I feel like that's what happens. If it never says that you get through it, that Jesus is lifting people up.
I didn't speak the word resurrection, but I thought of that earlier when we were talking about Marty and Lynn's movement.
And if this is a resurrection scene, then again you have to figure out if a resurrection has a price. Because if the rising is the result of a transaction, then there's a price for the resurrection. You have to be really sure before you decide what the price of the resurrection is. And if the price is imposture, that would be a message that I'd be careful with. Anyway, this is how we pick at things, just to see what happens. With my group, right about now, we would decide it would be time to go. Because I think we've picked what we could pick. And we come back in a week and see what had ripened. Things tend to. The pieces that we find the first night sometimes go away forever. We've got pieces that we've never seen again. We've got pieces that stuck in people's craw so that we ended up having to keep playing them. I never know which it's going to be. I never have. I trust the process of working with people that know what they have to keep picking at. Occasionally I've got something I got to keep picking at, but if we worked on this again next week, we could find something different that happened as a result of some of the provocations.